From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What up, everybody? We're doing a show for you because we care. It's Aslan and Corey. It's Wake Up War Chant. Follow the show on social media. Wake Up War Chant, all one word. Follow Corey with an E, _ Clark without the E on Twitter. That's what matters most. It's all about accumulating the Twitter followers. Also, a reminder, folks, they've announced the signing day party for Florida State will be, obviously, National Signing Day, Wednesday, February 6th, 6 p.m. at the Tallahassee Automobile Museum. Be sure to check it out. Tickets are $40 a head. But get out there. It's a good time. It's usually pretty good food as well. Will you be out there, Corey, or is that something I'm going to have to attend?
We'll see, buddy. We'll see. I guess I got nothing else to do that night, so I might head out there. Maybe introduce myself to a couple of new coaches. It's always a nice time to hear them talk.
Yeah, for sure.
If there are two or three or four new coaches by that time.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that in a bit. We probably won't have a show tomorrow, folks, unless they hire a coach, which we're not holding our breath on that sort of stuff. Did want to send out a quick apology to the listeners yesterday. I was munching and snacking during the show. I don't know if you could hear any of that, Corey, but if you could, shame on you for not telling me. Apparently it ruined the show for a lot of people on their Monday. I was like nibbling.
I thought I could hear it, but then I was like, man,
thanks.
Aslan is way too professional
Thanks.
to be eating right now, so I can't imagine what that sound is.
Yeah, whatever. Thanks, man. Way
It's
to look out for me.
It's an odd thing for you to do.
Also, just some weird stuff going about the hemisphere and the universe that is Wake Up War Chant. Dude, shout out to all the people who've been here since day one. Don't be a fan later. I went and listened to some of the old shows, Corey, back when we used to call in on tin cans. Good
Right.
grief. Man, we've come a long way. We've come a long way.
We have, and this is our slow. It's a slow build to take over the country, and then I guess the world. One day at a time, or probably 3 or 4 days a week at a time. We don't do it every day because we kind of run out of things to talk about. But heaven knows we try. But yeah, it was pretty. Ryan Kelly did it for a while, got a nice little base going, and then obviously the magic of you and I together has been it's made this an unstoppable force, really.
Pretty much. Also, I went and listened to some of our greatest hits, if you will.
Do we have the greatest hits?
No, but man, I'll tell you, the show that we did after the Virginia Tech game and that we did after the Syracuse game, at the time, people might have really been honest about being negative, but if we weren't pitch perfect on that stuff, we, after the Syracuse game, I think you're like, obviously the ceiling for this team is very limited, and I'm like, what, like 8 or 9 wins? You're like, yeah, 8-9 wins at most. We said that for the Syracuse game. But actually, I think we said that for the Virginia Tech game. But I'm really proud of the way that we handled those situations. I also went back and listened to my rant on DeAndre, and I don't think it was nearly as bad as I started making myself feel for it, because I was kind of pressured into almost having to apologize for it, and I didn't. And then I kind of felt weird because I'd only been with the website for a few months. I didn't want to create animosity or tension between us and the front office at more. But they kind of told me, like, would you like to apologize for it? And I'm like, no, I kind of don't want to apologize for it. And I went back and listened to it finally for the first time, and I'm going to sleep a little bit better today, man. I don't feel as guilty about it. But anyway,
so is that what you were doing today on Monday, was just kind of going back and listening to old shows?
I was trying to find some stuff to put together for our Emmy nomination.
Even though this isn't a TV show.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's part of the NATAS or whatever, like the National Academy of Television and Arts and Sciences. So I think we fall somewhere in the the radio hemisphere or whatever.
Sure.
So had to start building up our resume tape or whatever. So I went back and listened to some of that stuff. But enough about the past. There's a couple things I do want to talk about today, Corey, but these are all, as Leonard Hamilton would probably classify them as, philosophical sort of questions.
Sure.
One of the things that came from yesterday as well, me having to eat the whole time, sorry about that, everybody, was the fact that I guess we were talking about, rest in peace, Al Dunlap, the major benefactor for Florida State athletics, who I think Ira went and posted it. It's been somewhere close to $40 million if you add up what he and his wife bequeathed to the university for the upcoming indoor practice facility, but then also the football ops facility that's coming in the future. But if you count the IPF and everything else, it's close to $40 million. I mentioned the fact that I'm not a booster. I'm not proud about it. Although at this point, I think it'd be kind of weird if I was a booster, if I was covering the team. And I don't know how many people at Fox News or, donate to the RNC, or how many people that cover stuff for CNN donate to the Democratic candidate, but probably not a good thing to do. So I don't know how kosher would be at that time. But somebody asked, well, Aslan, I get you don't want to donate because you're part of the journalism media throng, but what about your friends? And, are we at a point, Corey? Is it kind of like voting? Like, if you don't vote, you can't complain about your country's politics? Like, if you're not a booster, are you less than? Or, does your voice, should it not carry as much weight? Because I'm just thinking about all my friends who, make more money than I make, but they also have wives and mortgages and children and daycare. And the 13,000 people who are boosters also have that as well. But, that kind of makes me a little uncomfortable about, who can talk about the program, who can criticize things. And I'm a guy that criticizes the fact that I don't think we're nearly as flush as we try to make things seem like. So, am I not allowed to talk about those things now?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't compare it to voting. And also, I feel like you have a right to complain even if you don't vote. What if there's a senator in another state that's a racist? You're allowed to complain about that even though if you don't live in the state. My counter to that would be, I think you have a right to complain about the direction of a program, whether you give money or not. Obviously, it's a fan. You're a fan. And Florida State wants all the fans it can get, and it's got millions of them. And certainly not all of them went to Florida State. But the thing that always amuses me is the people that complain about how cheap Florida State is or how they don't have any money. Why is SEC, why are they killing us with money? Why can't Florida State compete and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, man, a lot of people that do that complaining don't give any money. Give a lot of money. Somebody needs to tell the 2013 team, if all of them just donated 5% of their salary next year, you're 2% of your salary. That's a huge boon to Florida State athletics. But I just think that's always been amusing to me, is the people that complain about how cheap Florida State is and they're trying to get by off the cheap. In the past, they did. With Bobby Bowden, heck, in baseball with Mike Martin, they've gotten by on the cheap. They haven't paid top dollar. They are now, but even still, they could use all the money they could get. People could make it a lot easier on Florida State if they donated money.
Well, it's one of those things.
I don't know. I would never tell your friends that they're not real fans because they're not donating money. But if you're going to complain about Florida State not having any money, which isn't true, by the way, they don't have as money as some teams. But if you're going to complain about them not having money, well, there's one. It's not like the NFL. I'm a Falcons fan. I just can't give them my paycheck and they're going to get better. But in college, you can make a little bit of an impact by donating.
For sure. It's one of those things where, obviously you care about Brady's well-being and Brady's grades, but, can you complain about the quality of education, if you're not part of the PTA? If you cared more, well, then you'd be part of the PTA. Well, if you cared as much, you'd be a booster. That's a weird sort of slippery slope.
No, I wouldn't say that with the PTA because that's
involves time.
It's still with a parent. You need to stay on your kid to study. You need to stay on your kid to do his homework. That's kind of all on the parent and the family more than organizational discussions of a PTA. If I complain to Brady about his grades, I'm not blaming anybody but Brady. But again, if you're going to complain about Florida State not having as much money as other schools, and you have some disposable income, that's a big deal. You're allowed to give some of it. Help out. Be a team player. Hey, Spanx lady, what are you doing? What is you doing, Spanx lady?
Yeah. Well, I think
$1 billion. Think about what $1 billion would do for Florida State.
Billion with a B, did you say?
Yeah, billion with a B.
Yeah, that would help. That help a little bit, right?
So just saying, Spanx lady.
Well, the thing is this. I don't want it to make it seem like I've complained about Florida State's finances. I just think anytime I've talked about it, I've kind of pointed out what I think is the reality is that Florida State doesn't have as much money as Texas, as Alabama, as A&M. I know the numbers flesh out that they spend more. They spend the most in the ACC, even more than Clemson, but I don't know how much of that is football versus football. And that's the university's choice. And I think that we might see some of that change here in terms of how much they are going to invest in the other programs because, I think we mentioned over the summer, there's some coaches that are near the pinnacle of their profession that might not be at Florida State 2 or 3 years from now. And maybe that's part of, moving funds and really going totally all in on football. And I know you say they are all in on football, and to a certain degree you're right, but part of the reason why Randy Clements isn't at Florida State right now is a money thing. This is sort of a game of boardroom, chicken. It's Houston is, well, are you guys going to take him off our hands, and pay his buyout? Florida State's like, well, are you guys going to fire him already? You have an offensive line coach already on staff. We're waiting to pluck him away from you. Go ahead and make it happen. So I just think we get to a point where we start pointing out things like assistant coach salary pool and the amount of money they're paying for their head coach. But when we're talking about top-level Division I, Power 5 head football coaches, it's like talking about CEOs of, I don't know, name it, whatever, Goldman Sachs or, I don't know, just whatever huge conglomerate you can think of, GE and things like that. The heads of all those corporations are making huge, huge sums of money. I think it comes down to the perks is what separates those jobs being better than another. And I think in this case, you're talking about, all right, man, yeah, you're going to get a 8-figure salary if you're the CEO of some big-time corporation, but, do you get a beach house in the Hamptons and a villa in Italy? I think with this, it's like if you're going to be you want to be a head football coach at a football powerhouse, are you going to have the latitude to make hires and fires when you want and get very little pushback? Now, is that right or wrong? I don't think guys like Jimbo should get a blank check on everything, but I think there's a certain amount of, leeway that those coaches demand, and I don't think Florida State is at the point where they can afford to do that. Now, that's not a huge problem. I'm not complaining about it. I just think that that's part of the reason why we're in the situation we are with certain things like Randy Clements.
Well, okay, sure, but again, they spend more money than 97% of college football programs. I guess they could be in the top 1% and spend everybody's below them, but at some point, to me, that's just almost, they compete financially and otherwise with every school. They certainly have as much money as Clemson. So, Clemson gets the same amount of money from the ACC deal as Florida State does. Where's their money coming from? I think Florida State's just spent poorly for a few years now. And you could certainly make the argument that the head coach hasn't proven that he was a great investment.
Well,
but it's early.
We don't have to go down that path. The only thing that I would say that I think the university didn't spend prudently was the addition they did to the locker room and that players' lounge preceding or actually, afterwards winning the national championship. That felt kind of like, all right, we won a national title. I want something. And Jimbo's like, I want something. They're like, well, this is all we can kind of afford here. Because they're going to end up, with this whole football ops facility, they're going to have a new locker room and they're going to have a new players' lounge. It's like, well, shoot, we just spent, $3-4 million on fixing that a few years ago. Again,
wouldn't it have made more sense at the time to say, hey, now that we just won a national championship head coach, you can write your ticket to anywhere you want to go. You basically do have a blank check,
right? Because
we'll get a lot of money. Wouldn't it have made sense at that time to start talking about how much you need a football only facility?
That's a good point. No, that's fair.
But he didn't. He told him he didn't tell him that. And then so they do that. They give him what he wants. They give him bigger offices. They give him the fancy locker rooms and all that stuff. And then literally 12 months later, he's telling him he needs a football-only building. It's like, man, why didn't you have any forethought at all? Because in 2014, January to August of 2014, you would have gotten checks from all the big-time boosters, man. They were all on board. You could have gotten that thing off the ground. It would be here by now. Jimbo might still be here, in my opinion. Now, I'm not a booster. I'm certainly not a big-time booster that's privy to those conversations. But I think if that would have been brought up at the time and argued at the time, I think more people would have been willing. But it became, again, it seemed to be a reaction to what Clemson did. Like, oh, Clemson's got one. We got to have one too. Well, why weren't you the first one to think about it? Why did Clemson break ground before Florida State did? If it was needed, is all. That's all.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just something that somebody brought up on the tribal council, basically asking why my friends don't donate, and again, it's
why don't they donate?
I mean, it's nothing that's exclusive to them. I don't think I've never really spoken.
No, I'm not talking. I'm not judging them by any stretch, but we're not. I'm not talking to anyone else on this show right now. I would ask somebody else that too.
Yeah.
But
no,
why?
I mean,
why don't
I joked
they donate?
about it. I'm like, I was the fanatic in the group. I bossed them around. Now they have their wives to do that for them. But I think I lived and died with the success, with the ebbs and flows of this football team, way more than any of my friends did. I think a lot of my friends almost feigned it sometimes just so I wouldn't feel as weird about it. Like, oh yeah, I'm totally bummed out too. But they're like, oh, whatever. I mean, They love the university. I think when their children are of age to start looking at colleges, they'll be like, hey, what about going to Tallahassee? I'll get a condo up there, and I'll hang out with you on game days. I mean, they'll do stuff like that. But, I mean, right now, I don't think any of them are boosters. One of my good friends in Birmingham, I know he had season tickets, but once he had his child, then it was like, well, I really can't make it down anymore, so I'm going to stop doing it. And I get it. And the whole thing with the boosters is, like, you shouldn't be donating. It shouldn't be like a quid pro quo. It shouldn't be like, I'm giving you guys $5,000 a year. I want you to then provide this back to me. It's supposed to be like altruism at its most pure form. It's like love of university, love of program. You appreciate what that program has meant to you, what it's done for you and your family, the memories you've made going to Florida State games. But I just think, when you've got daycare to pay for and a mortgage and student loans, it's hard to be altruistic with like $5,000 and be like, well, I would like to feel good about myself and help out my university, but I also like to pay some of my student loan debt down and also get my daughter through 6 more months of daycare. And
sure.
That's not exclusive to my friends, because the 13,000 boosters that are still out there, I'm sure they have children. I'm sure they have daycare. I'm sure they have mortgages. I'm sure they have all that sort of stuff. But I just think with my friends, I mean, they're not War Chant subscribers. They're not hardcore. They don't live and die with the football team, but they'll get together every few Saturdays. And when they play Miami, they'll get together and watch that game. When we play Florida, they'll get together and watch that game. But they're not dropping plans and telling the wife, oh, actually, no, I can't. We're playing Northern Illinois this Saturday. We're supposed to go to the bar and meet up. But they love the team, man. I mean, they just don't bleed the way that I did, and the way most people that listen to the show probably do. And I don't think that's, I don't think that's they're wrong or they're bad, but that's the kind of conversation you get when people start asking, well, how come people don't donate? It's like, well, man, like not everybody's as passionate about it as you are. And to a certain degree, that makes you better than them. But at the same time, life goes on. They're not gonna feel bad about it. I'm not gonna guilt them for it. And I'm not saying you're trying to make me guilt them either.
But doesn't that reasoning? And again, I'm not sitting here guilt. I'm not a booster. I'm not a Georgia booster. My dad was a Florida State booster for a long time, but it was like you said, it was just a passion of his. But doesn't that go for every pro school in the country? Like it's not like Florida State has this specific problem of graduates having kids.
Well, that's
and not
what I'm
having
saying.
disposable income.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not exclusive to my friends, but I'm imagining that's part of it.
But it's also not exclusive to Florida State. So why? And again, I don't know. We should get Jerry Kutz on here to talk about this. It's a pretty interesting. It's the off season at some point because he's been involved with Seminole Boosters forever. I would like to know how the Florida State booster membership compares to other schools. To me, that seems low, but I don't know, especially for a state school that graduates as many people a year as Florida State does. To me, that seems low, but I don't know that to be.
I will float this out there. And again, it goes back to the fact that if you're going to be a booster, it needs to be like an altruistic, sort of charitable, love, passion. But if you went to UT Austin, you probably live in Dallas. You might live in, I don't know, San Antonio. You can probably get to Austin pretty easily and catch a couple games. And yeah, you still feel good about donating to your alma mater, but like you still probably do get the benefit of being a booster. Like you're getting tickets to games and events, and you can go and actually attend those. But with Florida State being in Tallahassee and outside of Jacksonville, we're like basically 4 hours removed from any other major metropolitan area. Like for a lot of my friends, like it's not really an option to come up and watch games anymore. Like it took an act of Congress to get 3 of them up to come watch a Virginia Tech game. You know, it's like to drop everything and like tell the wife, hey, listen, I'm going to go out of town and get drunk with my friends for 2 days while you sit at home with the kids. You remember how that used to be, Corey? It's not an easy sell. It's not an easy sell, brother.
But my wife at the time was with me.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I'm coming with you. That's what you got to do. Don't quit blaming it on the wives.
Yeah.
Wives like sports. They like Florida State.
It's tongue in cheek. I'm not blaming it on the wives.
I know. I got you. Yeah, you are. Don't
I think that's part of it too. And then it's been talked about ad nauseum on the boards every single year. It's just, yeah, you can donate at a $100 level. We're not even saying be a golden chief. Like donate at a $100 level and just help out your alma mater. I'm sure, if I push that stuff to my friends, maybe some of them would listen. But at the end of the day, it's like, what's $100 going to do? You want to do something that's going to be substantial to help the university, but then you get to a point where it's like, well, I still want to get something out of it, and then you end up not being able to use it because your home games are Alabama State and, Louisiana Monroe and Boston College and NC State, and it's not as sexy as, if you live in Nashville and you go to Knoxville and watch Tennessee play Florida or play Georgia or play Auburn or play Alabama. Or if you live in Birmingham and you can drive 45 minutes to Tuscaloosa, or if you live in Atlanta, you drive, less than 2 hours to get to Athens from Atlanta?
Yeah, well, from where I live, it's like 45 minutes.
Yeah. So, that's another thing that's not in our favor either. But, I don't know, yeah, maybe we'll bring Jerry Coots on and we'll get a state of the Semel Union, Booster Union speech, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I would be interested because I know they do research and they compare themselves to other booster clubs, and I know they also did a lot of research for the club, for the Champions Club, and went around to a lot of other stadiums. So yeah, I think he'd be really interesting to talk to. And again, he's just been around for 100 years, so he's been around for basically the start of Bowden. So he's seen it all. So I think he'd be a really interesting guest to have some point in the next couple weeks, maybe after signing day is done, and this topic comes up again. I do remember one time a Golden Chief story from my dad. So in 2007, when they played Alabama in Jacksonville,
oh yeah, that
was like the biggest ticket, maybe the most sought ticket in Florida State history.
Right?
No, not that one. That one, yes. The next one, the Gator Bowl, West Virginia.
Okay.
Bowden's last game.
Finale. Yeah.
So my dad, for the Jacksonville game, because he'd been a Golden Chief. I don't even know. Maybe he might have been even higher than a goal. I can't remember. But for the Alabama game, he got as many tickets as he wanted, even though that was the biggest ticket. Because that's one of the perks of being a booster. They'll take care of you. So he got as many tickets as he wanted for the Alabama game. I think it was like 8. So anyway, the West Virginia game comes around, and I'm working on the beat at the time. I'm like, Dad, it sounds like they're only going to give 2 tickets out to each booster. And he's like, Turk, that's what he called me. It was my nickname. He's like, Turk, come on, man. I got 16 to a national championship game once. I got 8 to Alabama. They're going to take care of me. I promise. I'm like, Dad, I really don't think so. I just wrote the story. And sure enough, he calls up and they're like, yeah, no, we're only capping it at 2. And he's like, what? And they go, yeah, because we want all of our boosters to get a shot at going to the game. He's like, so you want the people that pay $300 a year to get the same amount of tickets as the people that have paid dozens of thousands of dollars a year for decades? That seems fair. And they went back and forth, and I think but what happened was he was SOL, man. They're like, sorry, Mr. Clark, you only get 2. And he had other buddies that weren't going, so he got some that way. But I just thought that was funny how he just assumed, yeah, I'll get as many as I want, even though it's the hottest ticket. It was probably the most sought after ticket in Florida State history. Bowden's last game, Jacksonville, New Year's Day, West Virginia, just to be there. And my man thinks that he's going to I can get 15 if I want. I can get 30. I'm like, Dad, I don't know, man. And yeah, he was wrong. He was wrong.
I think
I think they settled him up with some. They took care of him afterwards for a lot of like the next couple of seasons till he passed away. Yeah. But yeah, he was not happy about that, which you can kind of understand. Yeah. Like if you're him, you're like, wait, they get the same exact perk that I do.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, they're vital. Obviously, I mean, without a booster team, there's no football program. I get it. I'm just, and I even said in the thread, like the guys asking me why I don't donate. I'm like, well, the short story is that I'm cheap and I'm just not a good human being, because I made all sorts of like, silent agreements to myself. I'm like, all right, if they fire Jeff Bowden, I'll start giving money to the program. And they fire Jeff Bowden. I'm like, well, if they hire Jimbo as the OC, I'll pay. And they did, and I didn't pay up. I'm like, all right, if they do whatever they got to do to keep him here, and so they don't lose him, I'll pay up. And they did. We won a national title. I'm like, once they win a national title, then I'll get real about it. And they did, and I didn't pay up. So, like, I'm not a good human being. I'm not proud of it. I'm just simply stating that, there's some people probably that root for the team that are kind of like me, and it's not a good thing necessarily. One thing I do wonder,
I'm not disagreeing that you're not a good human being. I'll agree. I'll take that on face value. Yeah. But I wouldn't say it's because you don't donate to the boosters.
Well, I mean, I made like 5 – I mean, there's like 5 times I told the universe, if they step up, I will step up as well.
Maybe 2018 was unleashed on all of us because of your lies to the universe.
No, 2018 was unleashed on us because this is the year the Florida State's going to win the College World Series. And this will bring us to our last point of the day here, Corey. Okay. I'm obviously the skeptical guy. People took it kind of easy on me yesterday when I tongue-in-cheek poked fun at I didn't poke fun, but just threw cold water on the transfer from Northern Illinois, Ryan Roberts, offensive tackle. Several people point out that he played well against Brian Burns. I went and watched the first half. I don't know how many times Burns lined up on both sides of the line of scrimmage at both ends, left end and right end, so he didn't go up against the right tackle every single time. He looked okay. I think that was maybe one of his top 5 performances of the season, that the tackle from Northern Illinois. So he did all right. But this is what will make me will make me believe in just pure joy and optimism, and I will look at life through a whole new prism if one of the 2 things here happens now, Corey, and you're going to help dictate the trajectory of my life. So no pressure. Here we go. First off, Andrew Baselli, son of Anthony Baselli, was on scholarship for Florida State, left the program somewhat abruptly, I guess you could say, after the 2017 season. He has apparently attempted to walk on to the program and has made it through the first round of walk-on tryouts. So he is him and I think maybe 8-9 other kids. I took a photo of it. It's on the Tribal Council. Use the promo code.
So wait a minute. So Andrew Baselli still goes to school at Florida State?
Correct.
So he didn't leave to go play for somewhere else. He just quit football?
Correct. Yes.
My man, Rick Trickett.
Yeah.
Making football fun for everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Speaking of real fun, though, folks, give a shout out and check out Garnet and Gold. GarnetandGold.com. It's the website. There's a 10% discount for War Chant subscribers. They're the last locally owned retailer of FSU merchandise in Tallahassee. So if you're not a booster, at least buy your Florida State stuff from Garnet and Gold. Keep it in Tallahassee. Keep it local. Okay, so Baselli quits the team, throws away his scholarship, becomes a civilian, and then is like, actually, I'm going to go ahead and try to walk on. And he made it through the first round of, I guess, cuts, you could say. Cool thing, too, is that I don't think I don't know if he even met with Taggart and the staff. Maybe he did, but he wasn't there during spring. So it's not like one of those things where they're like, okay, well, you've learned our playbook, so we'll bring you on board because you're that much ahead of everybody else. It sounds like his body's transformed a little bit. He's probably not in 280-pound playing shape right now, but he's trying. So that's a cool thing. The other cool thing is the fact that there's this kid now on the baseball team that you pointed out to me. His name is Tim Becker. And this kid apparently is a senior, and he spent the last 3 years at Palm Beach State College and being a civilian here at Florida State, but he played on the club baseball team. And he was
Which I did not even know Florida State had one.
Yeah, look at that. So he was also like the president and the captain of the club baseball team. So these are the things that will make me believe in optimism and joy. Either Andrew Baselli helps lead an offensive resurgence, and Cam Akers like a 1,500-yard rushing season, If that happens, I'm going to be like, you know what, man? I'm going to start looking at things with more hope and see the good in things and the optimism and how great things can be. Or what I really want to see, I want to see Tim Becker hit a home run. I want to say Omaha, but that's really greedy. That's almost too difficult. But what about extra base hit walk-off in the regional or super regional? Like, if one of those things happens, Corey, which one should I put all my chips on so that I can look at life like you do and be a generally more pleasant human being?
I mean, I don't see Baselli making a real impact this year, but then I also don't see how the Becker kid would get a lot of meaningful at-bats.
Pinch hit, come on, man. Pinch hit, ninth inning, super regional.
Yeah, but there's a DH. I mean, you're not pinch hitting for pitchers, so it would be odd. Something would have gone pretty wrong that the season has come down to his bat, unless he's a lot better than I thought. Maybe
get a righty on lefty matchup. Dream a little dream, Corey.
Okay, sure. Then, yeah, I would say to make one that actually I think has more of a likelihood of coming true, and it doesn't. But man, I'm telling you, the best shooter on Florida State's basketball team is this kid Justin Light. I've watched him in scrimmages. I watch him warm up. He's got a funky left-handed shot, but it goes in like 80% of the time that I watch him play. Maybe because Leonard just will not play kids in foul trouble. Maybe Florida State's in the we'll say the second round. Trent Forrest is hobbled, goes down. The other three kids foul out, and they have to play Justin Light. Terrence Mann drives, kicks it to the corner, and that kid hits a game winner to send Florida State to the Sweet 16. He's a walk-on. I mean, that's a good story, right? But I think that has more chances of happening than my man getting a game-winning hit in an NCAA postseason game.
That's the ticket, though, man. Like, if I was coming here and doing like a season with, Mike Martin, like I would do at least one episode, have a little sidebar with this kid just to set it up.
It is kind of cool, though, that that is cool that he tried out for the team, and he's a legitimate walk-on. There's a lot of quote-unquote preferred walk-ons in college baseball because there's just no money in it. So a lot of those kids are just getting books or, like Stephen Cardullo and Sherman Johnson and people like that. They knew who those kids were when they got to campus. They didn't with this kid. He legitimately came and tried out and made the team, made like a top 10 team. What a neat thing for him. Just to even if he never really plays, he's a senior. He gets to hang out on a team with Parrish and Mendoza and,
the Diamond
Cabell.
Girls.
He's going to be playing with maybe 3 or 4 future major leaguers. He's going to be teammates with them. That's kind of cool. No matter what happens, that's a cool story that he made the team. And I'm sure 11 will get him some at-bats whenever he can because they do that a lot.
All right. Okay, fine. The
I don't see it happening, but if that did happen, if Tim Becker gets a game-winning hit this season, look, folks, I don't know how else to say it. Florida State's winning a national title.
It's got to happen. It's got to happen that
I'm
way.
calling it. You talk about the universe being ready for something. That's going to open it up. That's going to open up the floodgates. There's going to be comets flying into each other, and Florida State is going to win a baseball national championship.
I'm going to play it loose, Corey. I think we paid our penance on the football field this past season. So I think baseball is we're going to let this thing just play out the way it's supposed to. Or maybe Leonard did something he's going to elbow in there and take that cosmic karma away from 11 that Willie sacrificed on behalf of the greater good. But I think I'm just thinking it's going to pay off to the baseball team, and this is finally going to be the year. I'm just going to enjoy it, man.
From your mouth to God's ears, buddy. Hey, by the way, real quick before we wrap up.
Yeah.
So what were you eating yesterday?
So my mother went back to the motherland a few months ago to Iran, and when I actually went home for Christmas, I got some of the goodies that she brought back. So my people don't manufacture a lot of stuff. What we do is we refine petroleum, and we grow the world's best pistachios. So if you're a pistachio fan and you can get your hands on some authentic Iranian Persian pistachios, I'd almost tell you not to eat them because it'll ruin every pistachio from that point forward. And I'm not some sort of jingoist guy here thumping my chest, Iran. I'm not doing that. I'm an American. Glad to be here. Thanks for letting me stay around, everybody. But the pistachios are absolutely divine. But also, they make this like fruit roll-up that I didn't get when I was home. My mom had it, but I forgot to grab it out of the fridge. So my mom mailed it to me. It's literally like Iranian fruit roll-up, but they're on these huge sheets. I mean, it's like 4x3, just this huge rectangle of dried fruit paste. And it's just like a fruit roll-up. So like you suck on it, and you chew on it, and then you consume it. And I was like ripping off little nibs of it and throwing it in my mouth and just kind of,
we all heard it, yeah.
Yeah, so like it came in the mail, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to enjoy this. It just, so I didn't realize, and I knew it was making some sort of sound, but you usually are quite candid and open with like, dude, what's going on over there? I figured you would have interrupted me. I'm like, all right, well, it's probably not coming through on this microphone. But it did, and I'm sorry.
No, I was just setting you up. So you're saying through half of Monday's show, you had nuts in your mouth?
No, not pistachios. I had the fruit roll-up. Grow up.
Okay.
Grow up.
Sorry. Apologies.
Grow up, Corey.
Sorry.
Grow up.
Apologies.
Take a day off. Figure out how you're going to come back stronger when we do the Renegade Express. Leave your questions and comments on the Tribal Council, warchant.com. Use the promo code warchant30. We are going to take Wednesday off. We'll be back Thursday. Probably going to take Friday off as well. Don't guilt us unless you just want these weird shows where we talk about boosters and paying money and what walk-on's going to do something awesome. We tried.
You know what we should do real quick? For next week at some point, we should get some sort of, maybe a couple of ex-Florida State football players and talk about their signing day experiences.
Okay.
We could relate to that, right?
All right, look at you.
I did a story on Lorenzo Booker. You remember his announcement?
Oh, yeah.
I did his, it was like the 15th anniversary of his announcement because he was the first guy to do that.
Yep.
He was legitimately the first person to go on national television and declare where he was going.
Yep.
And he's the one that started it all.
Where were you?
It was a really interesting story. I bet he'd talk to us.
Where were you, Corey, that fateful day in February?
I was at the Gwinnett Daily Post, and I had it on the TV. And as soon as he said the thing about, because I kind of knew the backstory a little bit, like people kept saying he really wants to go to Florida State. That's his dream school, but it looks like he'll go to Notre Dame. As soon as he said the thing about just like whatever his teammate was, just like he said he had to follow his heart to Notre Dame, I've got to do this. I'm like, man, he's about to choose Florida State. And booyah. Yeah. Booyah. He just wasn't elite. He wasn't quite as good as Leon Washington, but he's done a nice career at Florida State.
Yeah. Good Orange Bowl game against Penn State back in 14 or whatever. Not
and
14,
all those people we should judge through the lens of who their coaches were.
Correct.
Yeah.
I just transferred to Florida State, and I had moved into an apartment with two random roommates. And, we really didn't talk all that much because, I transferred up for spring semester, so I'd only been up here for not even a whole month, really. And I think we were all in our individual respective rooms watching it, and the announcement happened, and all of us were like, hell yeah! And then we all came out and, hugged and dapped up, and then we all became friends. And the crazy thing is
Lorenzo Booker has a really soft spot in your heart.
And the crazy thing is I lost touch with those two guys because I only lived there for a semester and then moved in with my buddies once summer started up. But I actually found one of my old roommates on Twitter when I was looking at a Donald Trump tweet, and he had actually commented on it and got into a huge pissing fight with a bunch of people on the internet. And I'm like, hey, that's my old roommate Colby. So, yeah, small world, man.
It is. Well, let's get Colby on the show, if nothing else.
All right,
and you can relive your Lorenzo Booker moment together.
Indeed. All right, he's Corey Maslin. Thanks for listening, folks. Have a great one.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.